Okay. Two hyperbolas, horizontal and vertical. There's pieces of a hyperbola that we have to find. The center. The center is right there. Notice that the center is not actually attached to the hyperbola. Okay? The center is in the middle of this asymptotic box. I just made up that word. It's probably fine. Shush. And then the center is here on a vertical.
Wait a second, what's the difference there?
This one opens horizontally. This one opens vertically.
Yeah, but the center, like, is the center. Like,
yeah.
Like, it's always the center.
Hey, guess what? On a circle and an ellipse, the center is always the center.
Yeah, like, it's always going to be in the middle.
Yeah, that's what it means to be in the center.
Yeah, I know. So, like, what's the difference from that and that?
It's always in the... What was the difference between a circle and an ellipse? It was still in the center.
Yeah, but, like, you're pointing out where the center is in the other.
If you get your notes out from the first 2 days, the center is at 0, 0 on those two as well.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is it's always going to be in the center. Like,
It's not equal on the left side.
The center of a rectangle is the midpoint of the two diagonals.
No, we don't have to do the same thing.
Okay, now you will also have to find vertices, co-vertices, and foci. Okay? These are co-vertices. And those are vertices. Co-vertices are not on the hyperbola. Vertices are the turning point of the parabola. That's going to be important. And then the foci, just like the foci and anything else, are hanging on the outside. Okay? Co-vertices will never be attached. Vertices will always be the turning point. Foci will be what the hyperbola is curving around. Okay? The center, still HK. That's the midpoint of the foci. It's also the midpoint of the vertices. It's also the midpoint of the co-vertices. It's also the intersection of the two asymptotes. It's all kinds of stuff. Okay? Vertices are the turning points. They are plus or minus a units away from the center. Just like vertices with ellipses. They're the A value. Co-vertices, yep, are B units away from the center. Okay? We have a new term. Your transverse axis. We called this our major axis before. Because it doesn't run through, they call it a transverse axis on hyperbolas. This is equal to 2a. And your conjugate axis is 2b. You then have asymptotes that are diagonal lines that guide your hyperbola. These are your asymptotes. You will need to draw them every single time you draw a hyperbola. If you don't graph everything that I graph, it will not be correct. Okay? And then the foci are plus or minus C units away. Now, here's where things get a little, you're not going to be very happy. How do we find our C value for ellipses? A squared minus B squared, right? That's for ellipses. That's how you find your C. To find C in a hyperbola, it changes. C is the square root of A squared plus B squared. So it's still A squared and B squared. You have to remember ellipses is subtraction. Hyperbolas is addition. That was an issue on the quiz. You guys don't know what pieces go with what. And this is where you need to make sure that when you're doing your practice, you're paying attention to what you're doing. And probably not being on your phone is a good way of doing that. Because let me tell you right now, there's absolutely no more test corrections the rest of the year. I'm not doing it again. Okay, now, there's two forms. There's one for horizontal and there's one for vertical. Here's how they start out. Just let me write them down. You write them down in a second because I really want you to look at it and stop writing. Because if you don't pay attention, then you're going to miss things that you need. And that's becoming another major issue, is you guys are so worried about getting it written down that you're not paying attention to what you're writing down. Okay. What are the differences? So stop writing. Stop. What are the differences between an ellipse and a hyperbola? Yeah. It's definitely subtraction. The x and the y have now flipped. In an ellipse, the a squared and the b squared flipped. In a hyperbola, the x and the y have now flipped. Okay? If it's horizontal, your x will be first. If it's vertical, your y will be first. You cannot look at your a and b values anymore. The a and b values will not tell you which one goes horizontal and vertical. It's only the first term that tells you that. A could be smaller, B could be smaller. It has nothing to do with the A and B. Okay? Write those down now, please. That'll help his stomach.
Yeah. I want to know who sis was at lunch so I can ask if he was throwing he said, I'm really surprised there's not a video of me throwing up going around.
He's going to hear you talking all this crap about him.
Yeah, well.
But who's going to want to take a video of him throwing up? Like, who does that?
You ain't gonna watch it.
No, but who would do that?
Probably right.
I just want to know.
All right. Now, transverse axis. The x value is first. So your transverse is going to be x. Your conjugate is going to be y.
He's going to text me and you later and be like, why would you guys think I was lying?
X equals h, y equals k. You're going to, I remember how I gave you information to build the ellipse equation? I'm starting to give you pieces that I could give you to build a hyperbola equation. Graphing is not the big issue in this room. Those 3 days or those 2 days that I spent writing ellipses is what killed you on Wednesday. It's the stuff that you're not paying attention to. You're just writing it down and you're like, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal because what happened on Wednesdays? You didn't know how to build the equation because you didn't know how the foci moved with C. You use C to find A or B. Like, these are the pieces I need to make sure you guys are understanding. Okay? So this opens horizontally, so it's x equals h and y equals k. If it opens vertically, they are flipped. Now, the asymptotes are on top of the equation, probably the second most important part, because you got to be able to draw the asymptotes correctly and write the equation for them. Your asymptotes will always be like this if they're horizontal. Y equals plus or minus B over A x minus h plus k. You're going to write it just like that. That's if it's vertical. I'm sorry, if it's horizontal. If it's vertical, A over B, x minus h plus k. Now, these are asymptotes. They are linear lines. They need to look like a linear line. You need to know how to graph a linear line. You need to know where your slope is. You need to know what your y-intercept is. You have to know how to graph these points. Because if they're not graphed, it's part of the graph that's not correct. Okay? We're going to graph 3 of them. We're going to do them all together. If you want to get a ruler now to graph a nice linear line, they're in the purple bin in the back. I'm going to give you 30 seconds if you want to go get one. Or nobody? Okay. I'm telling you, you probably want to go get one. You need to be able to graph a straight line. So let me tell you that means get up and get one. No, don't throw it.
Never mind, don't throw it. Thank you. I'll let you know when I find it. Oh, who? She said she left because she was tired.
Some of these are broken, but she left because she was tired. I was just talking to her. I thought you were going to
Thanks. I
bed.
need one. Yeah, she said she
I
like
didn't
just
have
left
one.
before
How
the
do you
show.
have one? I just talked to her sit down, and she was fine.
Okay. Now, if you're finding a hyperbola, same letters as an ellipse. This is where you really need to start kicking in gear and making sure you understand what I'm doing. This is where things went haywire last week. How do you know what, first of all, is this horizontal or vertical? Is the X first or the Y first? The X is first, so it's horizontal. So it should open left and right. What does H equal? 0, because there's nothing in with the X. What does K equal? 0. Questions on that? What does A equal? 2. A is always the first denominator. A is 2 and B is 5. You need to get this stuff before you do anything here. What's my center? 0, 0.
How do you know whether you have a C or not?
It doesn't tell me anything about the foci. Okay.
So that's only the ones that, the word ones, without wrapping?
No. Sometimes they'll ask you to graph the foci. You still might have to find it. Like, we have to find the foci. So we're going to have to find C. All right. Now, vertices. What am I going to add, and which direction am I going to add it to? Which way does it stretch? Which way does it open? Left and right. What's my A value? 2. If you flip your paper over on the front, it says I have to find my vertices. What does it say I do? To what? The center. But you have to know which point to add or subtract it to. Which way am I opening? So which one am I going to add it to? Just the X, because it's horizontal. So you're going to add 2. And you're going to subtract 2. Well, I'm not graphing yet. Now, your vertices get graphed like real numbers. Get graphed like real points. Co-vertices. That's plus or minus B. What's B? 5. Well, if I added A to X, I'm going to add B to Y. So I'm going to add 5. And then I'm going to subtract 5. Those are also solid points. How do you find your foci? So C squared is A squared plus B squared. So this is the square root of 29. Which value of my center am I going to add the square root of 9 to? Which way is it stretching? Horizontally. The foci always go with the what? We don't have major axis now. Foci always go with the vertices. They always go with the vertices. So what did I add? Vertices always go with A. What did I add the A to? The X or the Y? The X. So you're going to add the foci to the, or the C value to the X. So plus or minus radical 29. You're clearly not going to graph that. Right? Somewhere in between 5 and 6. Probably closer to like 5.3-ish. Now, asymptotes. This opens left and right. So you're going to start your asymptote with y equals plus or minus. I usually leave a space, x minus h plus k. But time out before you write that. Would you write that? If you subtract 0, is that doing anything? If you add 0, is that doing anything? Do you need to do that? Do you need to be cognizant of when you need to write that and when you don't? Yeah, because if you write this and this, that's something my Algebra 1 kids, I would maybe allow them to do, but probably not. So I'm just going to have an X. Now, since it opens left and right, it's B over A. What is B? 5. What is A? 2. Is this a linear line? Yes. What's the y-intercept? What is the y-intercept? It's 0 because there's nothing added or subtracted on the end. Shh, you didn't say it first. Be careful. And it should have taken all of you about, like, really? Algebra 1 girl? Kick you in the teeth. What's my slope? Huh? Plus or minus 5 over 2, right? I have 2 lines, correct? So my first one is probably positive. So that means I'm going to go up 5 and over 2. Right? Down 5, left 2. You need to take your ruler and you need to make sure it's a decent line and you need to graph it. I'm going to be picky. It's got to be a dashed line. Why can't you make a straight line? It's not a real line. It's an asymptote. How do you graph negative 5 halves? Down 5 to the right, up 5 to the left. Now, from here, you have to know which way it stretches because you can't graph your foci, so you have to remember which way it stretches or which way it opens. Which way does this open?
Are you asking what's horizontal?
I'm asking which way it's opening. Left and right. So what you have to do is your turning point has to stop here. If you come and do this, it's wrong. You have to have your hyperbola wrap around your asymptote, hit your vertice, and come back around. You have to do it to the other side as well. You shouldn't have little dinky hyperbolas. They need to go all the way around your asymptotes. Everything I just graphed will be expected to be graphed. Okay? That's number 1. 2. It's usually the first thing I write down. What's H? Okay. What's A? What's B? Which way is it open? Up and down. What's my center? What are my vertices? Why did you do them on the Y value? Because it's going up and down. A wasn't the bigger one on number 1. Be careful. That has nothing to do with on hyperbola. Nothing to do with A. That's on an ellipse. On a hyperbola, it has to do with which one's first. The Y's first, so it's up and down. Covertices. 3, 0, negative 3, 0. How do I find my foci? I'm going to take the square root of a squared plus b squared. So this is the square root of 36 plus 9, which is the square root of 45, which is what? That's 3 radical 5. What do I add 3 radical 5 to? The y value. So this is 0, comma, plus or minus 3 radical 5. Asymptote. Y equals plus or minus, leave a space. X minus what?
So you always add the C value to your Y?
No, you add your C value to whatever you added your A value to. A and C always go together. Whatever one you added A to, you add C to. X minus what? Which is 0, plus K, which is also 0. So I don't need that. So then it's vertical. So horizontal was B over A. So vertical is A over B. So in this case, it is plus or minus 2x. If you leave it as 6 over 3, I'm going to question you. Graph it. I'll put it up in a minute. Graph it. Do the third one. Do it to it. Be careful. Just look at which one opens or which one's first, because that's how you know it opens. Yes, you would. Yes, you would. Tyler, are you doing number 3? That's what you're supposed to be doing. You thought what? I was going to do it for you?
No, I kind of just forgot school is.
Still here. Still here. Your friend, I think, has that same thought right now. She's so tired. You want to see it? So, if it's not at 0, 0, go from your center, because that's a point on your line, right? Use your slope there. Go up 1 over 4, down 1 over 4. Up 1 left, down 1 right. Use your center because it's a point on your line.
What's the point of the
Hold on, what'd you say?
What do we add and subtract with the vertices?
A.
So we do A from H and A from K?
No, so it opens left and right. So you're going to add 4 and subtract 4 from 3 because that's your X value.
Okay, and then you do the same for...
And then B goes with Y. I'm sorry, what?
For B for the
Yep.
Okay.
B goes with Y. If A goes with X, B has to go with Y, and C has to go with X. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I flipped it.
It's okay.
So what's the point of the x minus 3
Because you could technically take that to slope intercept form. It came off a little more aggressive than I anticipated. You could get this so it's in slope intercept form if you want, but this is technically point slope form and just moving it around. Yes. You just haven't played baseball in a while, so you're not sharp as you used to be. You need to fix these. This is ridiculous. Fix my paper. It's messed up. Yes, you did.
Food.
You did it when I was watching you yesterday.
Food. You don't have any food.
I should have recorded yesterday, and I would have proof. Coop's on my side. When she comes back, she'll prove it. You have 4 problems to do this weekend. Just 4. There they be. Yes. 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 Yes.